Week 2 of The Bachelor Presents Listen to Your Heart continued the game of romantic musical chairs as couples formed, swapped, and the last ones standing were thrown to the curb. But possibly the biggest question out of all of this is, what even is this show? Because while it's been presented as Bachelor in Paradise meets A Star is Born, everything seems to be changing next week. The rules, the format, adding musical guests. So let's take a look at the Week 3 sneak peek preview and try to see what we can figure out. And I think there are a couple of juicy details here if you really investigate the previews, so stick around to the end. As per usual, please no posting spoilers in the comment section below, unless you're Jason Mraz. Alright, let's start.
It's the moment you've been waiting for.
I'm really nervous.
The first performances of the season.
Hey, there's Jason. So as we can see, the couples will now be starting performances and being judged. I have a couple of things to say for this first little bit, but we're going to move on for a second and come back. The next part gives us some more info on the judging.
We're all kind of worried, to be honest.
They'll be judged on artistic and romantic compatibility.
So the two major factors for judging are going to be artistic merit and romantic compatibility, which I'm sure the judges will simply translate as performance chemistry. The judges for this week will be Jason Mraz, Kesha, you might better recognize her with blonde hair here, but yes, this is Kesha, and the last judges will be former Bachelorette JoJo and her beau Jordan. We'll see them later on in the preview. But before that, I wanted to head back to this picture. It kind of struck a chord with me because of one question that's been pestering me since last episode. What's up with Gabe? Okay, so stay with me for a minute here. I originally took a look at this picture and counted all of the couples. One right off the bat, which I'm guessing is Becca and Danny because of the jean jacket here, and Becca's jean jacket in this shot. Then there are 3 more couples with Brandon and Savannah, Chris and Bree, and we can see Julia here who's with Sheridan. So that's 4 couples so far. Move a few more frames in the shot and we can see Matt, who we know will be performing with Rudy based off of this shot. And in the back we can see Trevor, who's with Jamie. 6 couples. We can also safely say that somewhere in the middle there, probably behind Julia and Sheridan, is Natasha and Ryan. They're all over this preview and other ones from the past, which makes 7 couples. But last episode ended on 8 couples. The missing 2 are Gabe and Ruby. Now, of course, they could be ahead of Becca and Danny, or somewhere in there. There are a number of possibilities, but I have another idea. Since the show is so based around the rules of Bachelor in Paradise, with the women having power one week, the men the other, and coupling up for rose ceremonies, how couples are solidified for Listen to Your Heart would probably be the same as it is in Bachelor in Paradise. If you're unfamiliar with how things work there, near the end of Bachelor in Paradise, anyone who isn't in a committed relationship has to leave the beach. And since the upcoming performances are going to be judged on the couple's romantic connection, it would make sense that the same thing happens in this show. Next week, Chris Harrison enters and says, hey, anyone who's not in a committed partnership must leave the mansion now. And considering Gabe has had no screen time and we have no clue if him and Ruby have had any sort of romance, I wouldn't be surprised if the two don't commit and then have to leave. Not to mention, neither of them are really in any of the previews, apart from a few shots here or there which are from the first 2 episodes. Okay though, there's still more preview to get to.
Doing this with Bree just makes everything so much easier.
He's everything, and I really am falling in love with him.
Chris and Bree continue their romance. I'd say these two are one of the safest couples in the group. So far, they've gotten tons of screen time, and I'd say they're likely to be getting top marks from the judges in the romance category. After all, these two have already shared that they are falling in love with each other.
I kind of don't know romantically what's going on.
Now, at the opposite end of where Chris and Bree are is Julia and Sheridan. They're getting low grades on romance from Kesha.
Feelings may not be reciprocated between the two of you.
And there's JoJo and Jordan also questioning their romantic connection. Of course, I'm always weary in any kind of preview for a reality show, not just Bachelor, that things here are edited to make it seem more dramatic. Like JoJo and Jordan might actually be talking to a different couple. But even if that was the case, it's undeniable that Julia and Sheridan have trouble ahead of them. We know that Julia still seems to be interested in Brandon, and at the end of last episode, Brandon alluded to still having interest in her as well after the rose ceremony. So yeah, it makes sense that these two aren't going to be buzzing in the romantic chemistry department, especially considering one of them is only halfway in the relationship.
Questioning everything. I'm sorry.
I feel like Brandon is treating Savannah and I like pawns.
Aha, back to the usual Bachelor drama. All of this Brandon stuff will be coming to a head as Julia faces the decision between staying safe with Sheridan, who she may or may not have the strongest chemistry with, or being with Brandon and listening to her heart.
I wanted to leave
Because of you.
Julia's jealous, insecure, and at the end of the day, Brandon chose me.
This bit here is full of edits. The I wanted to leave because of you
I wanted to leave
Because of you.
seems out of place. But even with the edits, it's not really a fake out. Julia's interest in Brandon is going to come out, and Savannah is going to react.
anything can happen.
I didn't know the extent of you two. You could tell me that there's like something else going on.
Yep, Savannah's for sure finding out. But who will Brandon pick? Will he stay with Savannah or jump ships with Julia?
Please stop. Please stop.
The drama continues next Monday on Listen to Your Heart.
And here the preview ends. But one last thing is still nagging at me. So, let's talk eliminations. Obviously, Gabe and Ruby are gone at some point. They simply won't have the romantic connection, and if they do make it to these performances, that's going to show. My thought on this is that if they were doing well and did have a romantic connection, they'd likely be getting a lot more screen time, which just isn't happening. But let's move past them to who is next on the chopping block, to possibly who is going to be eliminated at the end of next episode. My thoughts on this are Sheridan and Savannah. That's right. I'm starting to wonder if Brandon dumps Savannah to be with Julia, and I'll show you the evidence that I have. Take a look at this shot and this shot. Julia and Brandon, both kissing, and it's not from the judged performances highlighted in the preview for next week. We can obviously tell from the outfits that they're wearing here and the outfits that they're wearing here. Now, searching through the preseason previews and the season previews, the only performance shots of Savannah I could find that we haven't seen yet is this shot here and this shot here. Both have Savannah wearing the same outfit, and it's the one from her performance with Brandon next week. Same goes for Sheridan too, him with Julia here and their performance next week. After that, there's nothing solid of either of them. The only footage that seems to go beyond next week involving any of these four contestants is with Julia and Brandon. And not only that, it's Julia and Brandon kissing. So if we're looking entirely at the preview footage, I'd say that Savannah and Sheridan's days are numbered. Now, my best guess for how that goes down is this. Brandon and Savannah, as well as Sheridan and Julia, both couple up for the performances. However that works, it's going to be these two that will be coupling up from the start. Then the performances happen, and either Julia and Sheridan get bad marks for chemistry, or both couples do. This causes Julia to second-guess her connection with Sheridan even more than she already is. As a result, she pursues things with Brandon, and it comes down to Brandon choosing between her and Savannah. And I bet it's very possible in this show for you to swap couples. Perhaps that's something Chris Harrison will even make clear early on in the episode. I know we talked about having a commitment earlier in this video, but I bet the producers would rather go down the avenue of best TV drama than the one most committed to the rules. Now, with the rules being so wonky on this show and ever-changing, is it possible that Brandon picks Savannah and somehow Julia still stays, and thus why we have this shot? Sure, but I'd say that's far less likely. After that, I'd keep my eye on Danny and Becca. They've had very little screen time despite seeming like a strong couple. Now, I do know that they have at least one date ahead of them as seen in this shot from the preseason and season previews. Which also shows that not only will future episodes have these judged performances, but there will be date cards thrown in the mix as well. And there you have it, the preview breakdown for week 3 of The Bachelor Presents Listen to Your Heart. Hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to like and subscribe if you did. And let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Will Brandon pick Julia? Will Gabe ever be seen again? We'll find out next week, so until then, Bachelor Fantake, out.
I wanted to leave because of you.
Julia's jealous, insecure, and at the end of the day, Brandon chose me.